At exactly 10 o'clock, rain hammered against the floor-to-ceiling windows of the sleek condo overlooking Biscayne Bay. The city lights blurred through the storm, streaks of gold and blue reflecting on the polished floors. Alyssa curled up on the brown leather sofa, phone in hand, scrolling absent-mindedly as the rain drummed a steady rhythm against the glass. It was almost calming, until her husband's voice cut through the room. Jack was in his home office down the hall, the door ajar. His tone had shifted, softer, secretive, almost conspiratorial, like he feared someone might overhear. Alyssa's instincts flared, sharp and icy. She set her phone down, rose, and crept closer, bare feet silent on the hardwood. "Everything's ready, Emily," Jack said, voice low but tinged with a boyish excitement Alyssa hadn't heard in years. "Tomorrow afternoon, the helicopter takes us to the island, far from everyone. Just you and me." Her chest heightened. Her pulse raced. She pressed herself against the wall, hardly daring to breathe. "Yes, my love," Emily replied on the line, her voice thick with syrupy tenderness. "No one will ever find us there. It'll be our little paradise." A soft laugh escaped Jack, a careless, almost childish sound that cut straight through her chest. She closed her eyes, fighting back the scream clawing at her throat. The man she had loved, the one she'd built her life with, was planning to vanish with someone else. But she wouldn't cry. Not yet. Alyssa returned to the sofa, legs trembling under the weight of what she'd just heard. Lightning flashed outside, illuminating her reflection in the window, a woman betrayed, but far from broken. She sank into the leather, exhaling slowly, letting the sting of betrayal harden into something else, resolve. If Jack wanted to play dirty, she would play smarter. Her hands steadied as she unlocked her phone and dialed a number she knew by heart. "Frank," she said, her voice calm, almost unnervingly so. Frank, her lifelong friend, pilot, and fiercely loyal protector, was silent for a moment. Then his voice came, tight with anger. "I always knew Jack was arrogant," he muttered. "But this is low. What do you need, Alyssa?" She inhaled, eyes fixed on the storm outside. "I need you to be their pilot tomorrow. Let him think everything's going according to plan. But instead of the island, I want you to take them somewhere else. Somewhere he'll learn what it means to play with fire." Frank hesitated. "You're serious?" "More than ever," she said firm. "He's going to learn I'm not a woman you lie to, step on, or abandon. He'll learn what happens when you underestimate me." A quiet laugh crackled through the line. "Then tell me the plan." By the time they hung up, hours had passed. Every detail had been mapped: where they'd land, how Frank would deliver the envelope, and how Alyssa would finally reclaim what was hers. Later that night, as Jack slept beside her, the rain still whispering against the windows, Alyssa stared at the ceiling. Her heart ached, but her mind was sharp, unflinching. "You have no idea what's coming, Jack," she whispered into the dark. Morning arrived with deceptive calm. Sunlight pierced the clouds, glinting off the wet high-rise glass. Jack zipped his last suitcase with a self-satisfied smile, humming to himself like a man stepping into a new life. Emily waited at a nearby hotel, dressed for escape. From her upstairs window, Alyssa watched Jack's car pull out of the driveway, expression unreadable, hands steady around her coffee cup. At the private helipad north of the city, Frank stood beside a sleek helicopter, clipboard in hand, uniform crisp. When Jack and Emily arrived, he greeted them with calm professionalism. "Good morning, sir. I'm Frank, your pilot. I'll make sure your trip is completely private and safe." Jack shook his hand. "I like your confidence, Frank. You understand the importance of discretion." "Of course, sir," Frank said lightly. "That's what I'm known for." The couple climbed aboard, excitement radiating off them. Emily whispered, "He seems trustworthy, doesn't he?" "Relax," Jack said with a smug grin. "Everything's under control." The rotors roared to life, slicing through the morning air. The helicopter rose above Miami's skyline, the turquoise waters of Biscayne Bay sparkling below. "The island you're headed to is private. Very few people ever get to see it," Frank said over the headset. Emily smiled dreamily. "It sounds like a dream." Jack squeezed her hand. "That's because it is, sweetheart. All for you." Frank smirked faintly. "A dream," he muttered under his breath. When they landed, the helicopter touched down on a deserted strip of sand, the ocean shimmering under the midday sun, a perfect illusion of paradise. Frank handed Jack a sealed envelope. "This was left for you, sir. A special delivery meant to make your stay memorable." Jack frowned. "Who sent this?" "My instructions were to deliver it personally," Frank said, stepping back toward the helicopter. "My job ends here." In seconds, the helicopter was airborne again, leaving only the ocean behind. Emily looked at Jack. "Well, are you going to open it?" He tore it open impatiently. Legal papers spilled into his hands. His face drained of color as he scanned the first page. "What is it?" Emily asked nervously. "It's a contract," Jack said, voice tight. "Alyssa knows everything. She sent this." Emily froze. "She knows everything?" "Don't ask me how," he snapped. "What matters is what's in here. She wants half of everything. The houses, the accounts, everything I've built. And we can't leave until I sign." He turned to the empty helicopter pad, panic cracking his arrogance. "We're stuck here," he muttered. Emily's eyes darted around the beach. "Trapped?" "Jack, please tell me this is one of your games." She wouldn't actually. He threw the papers at her feet. "Does this look like a game to you?" Her hands shook as she read through each clause. "She really did it," she whispered. "Oh my God, what do we do now?" Jack paced the sand, frustration spilling over. "I'm not signing this. She thinks she can manipulate me? I'll find another way." Emily crossed her arms, anger mingling with fear. "And how exactly?" "There's no boat, no phone. You're completely at her mercy. Don't underestimate me. I always find a way." "I'd rather die here than give her what she wants," he growled. "Then maybe stop thinking about winning or losing and start thinking about surviving. If you die here, she gets everything anyway. Right now, she only wants half. Swallow your pride and sign." "Whose side are you even on, mine or hers?" Jack barked. "You really don't get it," Emily said. "You built this trap yourself. And now you're the one caught in it." Silence fell over the island, broken only by the waves crashing on white sand. Jack hunched over the papers, staring at the inked words as if sheer force could erase them. Deep down, he knew Alyssa had outsmarted him, and that realization fueled his rage. Emily sighed beside him, brushing damp strands from her face. "Yelling and pacing won't help. We need to think together." Jack didn't respond. Finally, his voice came, low and ragged. "She underestimated me. This isn't over." Emily's gaze drifted to the endless horizon. Even through her fear, she couldn't help but admire Alyssa. Every detail of this trap had been executed perfectly. Jack wasn't leaving the island the way he thought. Not easily. By midday, the sun beat down mercilessly, turning the sand into a blinding, oppressive sea of white. Jack had walked its length so many times he'd lost count, leaving jagged footprints behind, heat searing into his skin. Emily took refuge under the shade of a swaying palm tree, watching his restless pacing. What had felt idyllic in the morning now pressed down like a punishment, a harsh reminder that they were utterly alone. "There's nothing here. Nothing," Jack roared, kicking at the sand in frustration. His voice was raw, frayed by anger and exhaustion. "This place is a wasteland. I can't believe she had the audacity to do this to me." "Yelling won't fix anything," Emily said, calm and measured, her voice a quiet contrast to his storm. "We need to think clearly." Jack whipped around, eyes blazing. "Think clearly? She set this up to humiliate me, and you want me to stay calm? You don't get it. You don't understand what this means." Emily rose, stepping forward until they were face to face. The wind tugged at her hair, but she didn't flinch. "No, Jack, you don't get it. You're not the only one trapped here. I'm stuck too, remember? All because you thought you could juggle two women at once." Her words hit him like a slap. Jack opened his mouth, but nothing came. He spun away, muttering under his breath. Emily pressed on. "You know your problem? You've always thought you could control everything, and everyone. So confident. Untouchable. And look where that's gotten you. We're stranded here because you underestimated Alyssa. Honestly, she's a lot smarter than you." Jack spun back, fury blazing. Don't you dare talk about her like that. Alyssa is a woman who finally stood up for herself. Emily interjected sharply, voice edged with sarcasm. And honestly, you should respect her for it. Respect her, he shouted, closing the gap. She's trying to destroy everything I've built, and you want me to respect her? Emily didn't waver. What did you expect, Jack? That she'd sit at home with open arms while you cheated? What planet are you living on? He ran a hand over his face, trying to contain the storm inside him. I'm not signing those papers, he growled. I don't care what happens. She's not going to win. Emily rolled her eyes. Right. Because stubbornness is a great escape plan. Brilliant, Jack. Truly brilliant. Jack ignored her, pacing the sand again. Deep down, he knew he was cornered. Pride, however, refused to yield. Every word on those pages gnawed at his ego. Surrender was unthinkable. Emily settled back under the palm tree, staring at the endless cerulean ocean. Silence pressed down, heavy and suffocating. Occasionally, Jack would glance her way and notice something different. This wasn't the woman who had once followed his lead unquestioningly. There was fire now, a sharp edge he couldn't control or predict. Finally, she spoke. You know, Jack, maybe this is punishment. Maybe the universe is showing you that you can't keep living like this, lying, hurting people who trust you. He scoffed, bitter. Punishment? I don't believe in karma. This is Alyssa's game, and I'll find a way out. You'll see. Emily's eyes held his, unwavering. Are you sure about that? Because even if you leave this island, you'll still be trapped. Trapped by your pride, your obsession with control. And in the end, you'll be completely alone. Her words cut deeper than he wanted to admit. He scanned the horizon again, hoping for some impossible escape, but he knew Alyssa had thought of everything. He had two choices, give in or destroy himself trying not to. As the day faded into violet twilight, the island's paradise transformed into a cage. Jack crouched near a small fire he'd managed to spark, its flickering light casting shadows across his exhausted face. Emily sat a few feet away, back to him, gazing at the silver path the moonlight carved across the waves. Between them stretched a silence heavier than any argument. Jack gripped the contract, each line of type a fresh wound to his ego. This wasn't just about money, it was pride. Signing meant admitting defeat, acknowledging that Alyssa had won. Emily broke the quiet, soft but firm. Jack, how long are you going to pretend you have a choice? There's no helicopter, no boat, and in case you haven't noticed, I don't want to stay here either. Her words hung in the night air, carried away by the wind and the sound of the waves, a final reminder that no matter how hard he fought, he was already trapped. Jack looked at her, frowning. What does that even mean? She turned slowly, eyes bright with clarity. It means maybe Alyssa's right. Maybe you need to lose to understand what really matters. Oh, don't start with that cheap philosophy, he snapped. You don't understand what this means for me. Signing these papers means admitting she destroyed everything I worked for. Emily laughed bitterly. What exactly did you build, Jack? A castle of lies? A life propped up on deception? Because it all collapsed the moment you betrayed the woman who trusted you. Jack slammed the papers onto the sand. You think it's that easy? Sign and move on. No, Emily said, arms crossed. Nothing will ever be the same. Not with Alyssa, not with me, not even with you. But maybe it's time you finally faced it. This isn't about winning or losing. It's about consequences. Jack froze, fists clenched, her words echoing in his mind. She was right. He knew it. But admitting it felt like tearing a piece of himself away. He glanced down at the papers, the ink a cruel mirror of his failures. What happens after I sign? He asked quietly. Emily shrugged. Then you face reality. Maybe Alyssa comes back. Maybe you have to start over. But at least you'll be free. And honestly, I'm done with your games. Fight your ghosts alone if you want. Jack stared at the fire, its flickering light reflecting the weight of everything he'd lost. Possessions, control, pride. He knelt, picked up the pen from the envelope, and one by one signed his name. The scratch of the pen on paper sounded like a quiet confession. When he finished, he let the papers fall to the sand. He looked at Emily. It's done. I hope you're happy. I'm not happy, she said softly, but I'm relieved. At least now we have a chance to get off this island. Jack sank onto a nearby log, the weight of his defeat pressing down on him. He realized, with a clarity he'd never allowed himself before, that he hadn't just lost to Alyssa. He'd lost to himself. And maybe that was the real cost of all his lies. The next morning, around 11, the distant thrum of a helicopter broke the stillness over the island. It wasn't Frank, but he had sent it, a silent messenger carrying the final act of Alyssa's plan. When the helicopter touched down, rotors slicing through the humid Florida air, the pilot stepped out, nodding professionally. His instructions were clear: collect the signed documents and nothing else. Jack handed over the envelope, his signature still fresh, a permanent seal on his defeat. The pilot placed the papers in a locked metal case, leaving no room for second thoughts, then returned to the helicopter, the fading hum of the blades dissolving into the distance. Meanwhile, back in downtown Miami, sunlight poured through the wide windows of Alyssa's office, bouncing off the glass towers and sparkling waters of Biscayne Bay. She sat in her leather chair, cradling a steaming cup of coffee, eyes fixed on the skyline. On her desk lay the signed papers, silent, undeniable proof that she had won. But victory wasn't the point. For Alyssa, it was about reclaiming her life. For the first time in years, she felt a steady, unshakable sense of control, a freedom she hadn't known in far too long. Jack, by contrast, sat alone in a small, nondescript apartment somewhere in the city. Gone was the mansion, the luxury, the power he had once taken for granted. Bare walls, plain furniture, oppressive silence, each corner seemed to press down on him. He stared at the muted television, then at the clock ticking mercilessly on the wall. Nothing could fill the emptiness. Finally, he reached for his phone, hesitating before dialing. The line clicked, and Alyssa answered immediately, calm, controlled, utterly composed. "Jack," she said. He swallowed hard. I wanted to talk to you." "About what?" she asked, flat, unyielding. "About us, about what happened." A short, humorless laugh escaped her. "There is no us, Jack. That part of my life is over. So what do you really want?" He hesitated, guilt pressing against his chest like a physical weight. I wanted to say I'm sorry. I ruined everything." Alyssa drew a slow, steady breath, closing her eyes briefly. For a fleeting moment, she remembered the man she had once loved, the one she had imagined growing old beside. But he was gone, replaced by the man who had betrayed her. "When you call them mistakes, Jack," she said finally, voice calm but firm, "you're wrong. This wasn't a mistake. It was a choice. Several choices. And each one brought us here. You can't change the past, and neither can I. All we can do is move forward." "Move forward," he repeated bitterly, the words tasting sour. "You make it sound easy." "It's not," she admitted softly. "But you know the difference between us? I learned from it. I examined myself. I decided never to let anyone put me in that position again. You're still trapped in your pride, still trying to control everything." He let out a long, weary sigh. "You think I haven't learned anything?" "I lost everything, Alyssa. Doesn't that count for something?" "Losing everything doesn't mean you've learned," she said, precise and measured. "It just means you're facing the consequences of what you sowed. Real change comes from within, and I truly hope you find it someday." He said nothing. Deep down, he knew she was right. "You'll never forgive me, will you?" he asked, voice softening to a whisper. Alyssa drew another deliberate breath. "I already forgave you, Jack. But not for you, for me. I don't carry that pain anymore. Forgiveness is my freedom, not yours. Now you have to find your own." Before he could respond, the line went dead. Jack stared at the phone for several long moments, then set it down. He walked to the window, gazing out at the distant skyline. The city that once symbolized his success and power now felt cold and alien. For the first time, he truly felt alone. For Alyssa, that morning marked the close of a long chapter. She rose from her chair, straightened her blazer, and stepped into the bright Miami sunlight. A new day awaited, one she could face without lies, without pain, and without the man who had tried to define her life. Later, her phone rang. Frank's name flashed on the screen. "So, how are you holding up?" he asked warmly. "Thanks to you, I'm doing great," she said, a faint smile brushing her lips. "I don't know what I would have done without your help." "You don't owe me thanks," Frank replied. "You're a good friend. You didn't deserve any of what he put you through. Let's hope he's learned not to underestimate anyone again." "I hope so too," Alyssa said, letting the corners of her mouth lift slightly. The weight of years finally eased off her shoulders. As their lives moved forward in separate directions, both Alyssa and Jack understood the immutable truth of betrayal. It always carries a cost. For Alyssa, it was a lesson in strength, self-respect, and freedom. For Jack, it was a permanent mark of loss, regret, and the harsh realization that some mistakes cannot be undone. You just heard this one from Stories by Sue. If it resonated, don't forget to like and subscribe. What are your thoughts? Share them in the comments. I'd love to hear. Thanks for watching.